For the first time since the original iPhone, Apple is finally about to come out with something that is completely different and new. Yes, the foldable iPhone, it's actually happening. So today, I want to give you an early look at the iPhone Ultra, which is a completely new form factor with a radical new design, massive displays, quad cameras, a breakthrough chip, and their largest battery ever. All of this is releasing in less than 12 months, and it's shaping up to be one of the most ambitious Apple products ever. And it all starts with the way that this thing looks. The iPhone Ultra is going to feature a book-style design, meaning that there are two separate halves, essentially two different phones combined together in the middle with a central hinge. And while normally you wouldn't expect something like a hinge to be interesting at all, it's kind of the central component that Apple has cracked to make their entire vision work. This hinge on the iPhone Ultra is going to be made out of liquid metal, titanium, and stainless steel, which is different from traditional metals as it's going to increase the durability over time, meaning that you can fold it a bunch for years to come and it's never going to break down or act up. And the use of these premium materials also extends to the chassis as well, with Apple once again opting for titanium, likely using a polished version just like they've done on the iPhone Air to give it a shiny and jewelry-like appearance. But to me, the most striking part of the iPhone Ultra is actually going to be how thick it is, as Apple's aiming to set a new record for the thinnest Apple product they have ever made. Currently, that record is held by the 13-inch iPad Pro, which comes in at 5.1 millimeters. But the iPhone Ultra, when unfolded, is said to be just 4.8 millimeters. We tried our best to visualize this in the renders, but I don't think that does it justice. So just imagine you're holding an iPhone Air. Well, the iPhone Ultra is 15% thinner than that, which is kind of insane. However, don't expect to be as impressed by the colors, as Apple said to be keeping it pretty plain and simple, just offering black and white at launch. So no crazy special color, no gold, just black and white. That's what they're doing for the Ultra. Next, another first for the iPhone Ultra is that this will be Apple's first iPhone with two separate displays. There's one on the outside and one massive version on the inside. Sources say that the cover screen on the iPhone Ultra will come in at 5.5 inches, which is notably smaller than any other current iPhone screen. But that's because the point of this one isn't to be fully featured, it's just for quick access to most parts of your phone without opening up the device. At the top, you'll still get a single selfie camera cutout that will likely live inside a smaller dynamic island, but of course, the real magic and the whole point of this device is what happens when you open it up and look at this display, which is said to be at about 7.8 inches diagonally. It basically means that when unfolded, the iPhone Ultra will have a screen as large as an iPad mini, which is kind of hard to comprehend because we've never had any iPhone that large. Now, the main display will also have a selfie camera, but it's a first of its kind implementation here too. Apple is going to place it completely under the screen so that most times it will not even be visible in the first place. And compared to other manufacturers who have technically implemented something like this in the past, the quality of Apple's camera is going to be top notch. We're hearing a 24 megapixel sensor, which is even better than the 18 we have now. The thing is, for this display, all of this other stuff is additive on top of one single problem that Apple has decided to solve that no other foldable maker has, and that is removing the crease that sits in the middle of the display. Since foldable phones debuted, every single one from some angle has had this pretty noticeable crease that to me has always ruined the concept because it just inherently made the product look cheap. But on the iPhone Ultra, we are hearing that Apple has solved this. They are using this new method that involves a metal plate to absorb the tension and crease so that when you open and close it, it is not visible like it was before. And I see this as the number one reason Apple has waited to enter the market until now. Sure, they could have done it in the past and had a crease like everybody else, but this is Apple. They don't want to do just the exact same thing. They want to do something a little bit different, a little bit better, a little bit more mature, and that's what the screen on the iPhone Ultra is going to be. It's not a screen with a crease. It's just a screen. Now, I should mention that with Apple's display setup and with the overall design in general, there is one pretty big caveat that I haven't seen that many people talking about, and that's that the iPhone Ultra has been essentially confirmed to not have Face ID. Yeah, it sounds like this device is just so thin and so many different components will be packed inside here that there is simply not enough room for Apple's traditional true depth camera setup. So instead, Apple is going back quite a few years all the way to Touch ID, and a very similar implementation like what Apple has done with the iPad Air, meaning that the Touch ID sensor will double as the power or sleep button that sits on the right side of the phone. It'll also just happen to scan your fingerprint, but I have to say it is going to be very strange that after nearly 10 years of preaching about Face ID being the best, it will be a little ironic that their most expensive iPhone ever only has Touch ID, and that somehow we are back to Touch ID on the iPhone after all of these years. Now, to make sure all of my Apple products are charging as quickly and efficiently as possible, that's why I partnered up with Anker, who sponsored today's video. Specifically, I want to show you some new products from Anker Prime, which includes their most advanced lineup of charging accessories like this new industry-leading 300-watt multi-port fast-charging power bank. It can charge 3 devices simultaneously at full speed, including my MacBook Pro, iPad Pro, and iPhone 17 Pro, delivering up to 300 watts of power all at once. And it's also the world's first power bank that can maintain a stable 140-watt single port output, enabling high-end laptops to perform at their maximum. That's really impressive considering this thing has a 26,250 milliamp hour capacity and is 17% smaller in size and 10% lighter than comparable power banks. For the times when I'm not on the go, I've also been loving Anker's new 3-in-1 wireless charging station, which is the world's first 25-watt wireless charger with an active cooling system and built-in display. That means you get the latest Qi 2 standard that has 25 watts of ultra-fast MagSafe charging that can power something like an iPhone 17 Pro to 50% in 22 minutes. And to keep your phone cool while charging, it uses a tech active cooling system that features aerospace technology to make sure your device surface stays under 36 degrees Celsius. So make sure your devices are charging as quickly as they can with Anker. When you use my link down below in the description, you can get a limited time discount on both of these products. A huge thank you to Anker for sponsoring this one. Now let's get back to it. Now this brings us to the cameras on the iPhone Ultra, which I also find pretty interesting. I mean, we know there are 2 separate selfie cameras that we've talked about already, but what about the main cameras on the back of this device? You might assume that because Apple's current Pro iPhones have a triple camera array, that of course the Ultra, their best model ever, would have 3 or maybe even 4 cameras. But according to sources, Apple has other plans, and the iPhone Ultra will actually only have a dual lens array, and it sounds pretty much 1-to-1 with the current iPhone 17 base model. The first camera will be a 48 megapixel wide, and the second camera will be a 48 megapixel ultra wide, but that is it. There is no dedicated telephoto, no additional lenses of any kind on the back. It's going to be kind of stripped down. But what the iPhone Ultra lacks in the camera department, I think Apple will make up for it with battery life, which is surprising considering that this device is so ultra thin. How is Apple going to fit a good battery inside of this? Well, it sounds like this phone will also be Apple's first to use a new type of high-density battery cells, which in a similar amount of space as a traditional battery will pack even more milliamp hours inside. And one rumor has already claimed to know how big this battery is going to be. They say it is going to be the biggest battery Apple has ever used in an iPhone, coming in at between 5,400 and 5,800 milliamp hours. Now, considering the iPhone 17 Pro Max currently holds the record and sits at 5,088 milliamp hours, this would be up to 13% larger. I mean, other rumors have said that the iPhone Ultra is essentially going to be 2 even thinner iPhone Airs connected with a hinge in the middle. And in that regard, I think it makes sense how the battery life could be twice as good as that. Admittedly, though, the physical battery will probably only be half of the power story that Apple tells, because the other half is what Apple always flexes, and that is their own proprietary Apple silicon. With the iPhone Ultra, Apple set to debut the A20 chip, but this is not just yet another chip from Apple. This is going to be the next major step forward for the entire Apple silicon platform. The A20 chip will be Apple's first to be made with a 2-nanometer process, meaning you can fit even more transistors in a smaller area, therefore increasing performance but also using less energy. One source has given us the numbers for the A20 chip and they sound ridiculous, saying that the performance will go up 15% year over year compared to the A19 that we have right now, while power efficiency will increase by 30%. If those numbers end up being real, specifically the power efficiency one, that is insane. Like, I kind of have to see it to believe it, because a third improvement year over year, I mean, that would explain how Apple could get the battery to be solid in a device this ridiculously thin. It's also on the iPhone Ultra that we're going to continue to see Apple's silicon bet pay off again. There's other components too, like the N1 wireless chip that will be built inside of here for the latest Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and Thread standards. And most notably, Apple will introduce a new high-end modem called the C2 that adds support for both sub-6 GHz and the millimeter wave. Effectively, the current C-series modems they use are almost as good as the competition. This C2 will be the first time it's better than the competition. I find all of this engineering really cool, but what are you actually going to do with an iPhone Ultra? This is kind of my fundamental question for folding phones in general. And so far, it sounds like there is going to be one main new feature that you get on the Fold that you don't have on other iPhones. That feature is multitasking. That because you essentially have two full-size phone screens side by side, you will officially be able to run apps in parallel and do multiple things at once, as well as having a much larger screen for doing things like watching content. And I wouldn't be shocked if Apple took some parts of multitasking on the iPad and put them directly on the iPhone too, as you would finally have enough screen real estate to move windows around in a way that you just haven't had before. As of right now, we don't have a ton of specific details, but definitely hit subscribe for everything we learn in the coming months up until release, which sources currently point to is going to happen in September of 2026 alongside the other iPhone 18 Pro models. But when the iPhone Ultra launches, it's not going to just be a little bit more expensive than current iPhones. It is going to be the most expensive iPhone ever made by almost double. Sources say that the iPhone Ultra will cost between $1,800 and $2,500. That's kind of been the general vibe, and I think it would be closer to the high end of that. It's going to be really expensive, and that's not a I think or it might be, like that is a fact. This is going to be the most complicated iPhone ever. It is going to be most expensive for Apple to make, and it's going to be made of their most premium stuff. Basically, imagine the Vision Pro in iPhone form, and that is what the Ultra is going to be. So we should all probably collectively start saving up now. All right, if you enjoyed this video or you learned something new, drop a like. Seriously helps me in the channel out. And again, hit subscribe. I know I just told you to do that, but it really helps me out too, and it makes me happy to see the subscriber count go up. That's why I want you to do that. I'll be transparent with you. Okay. Thanks for watching. I've been Sam, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.